All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. As always, I am absolutely thrilled that you are here. If you've never checked out the program before, we are primarily an interview and a commentary podcast. You can find the Billy D's podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including iTunes, Spotify, over at Good Pods, and a lot of great places. Today, we are actually on location. We're actually on location. You know, prior to COVID and all those other things, we did location things every once in a while, but we're trying to get back out there. And I am in Massillon, Ohio today, and I am at Erie St Vinyl. And yes, you heard that correct. It's not a vinyl sighting. We're talking records here. With me is Sam. Sam, how are you?
I'm really good.
Awesome. Sam, welcome. This is like really cool. You have this vibe of, well, what I take from it, kind of like the 70s, you know?
Sure, yeah. Well, I feel like that was probably the heyday of the vinyl kind of, I mean, that was when vinyl was most popular. And I feel like that the mid-century modern feel goes hand in hand with this whole movement, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I got to tell you, the store is really laid out kind of cool. You have the vintage speakers and all the audio gear on the walls and around the store. And of course, you have the bins of the vinyl records. And anybody who, I grew up in an era when, you know, this was a big thing, audiophiles. And as a man, I got to tell you, that was a kind of a boy thing in terms of my speakers are bigger than yours.
Sure.
I didn't hear girls talk like that too much. No, my amps are bigger than your amps. Didn't hear it so much, but guys did. You know, it was kind of like their car. My car's got more horsepower. This is kind of part of a time that's gone by.
Mm-hmm,
and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Now, there is obviously a very enthusiastic new resurgence of vintage equipment, vinyl records, and all these other things, and we're going to talk about that. So tell me a little bit about your establishment here and what's your mission?
Well, here at Erie St Vinyl, my mission here is to enrich people's shopping experience in their homes with vinyl music. I pay a lot of attention to how this place feels, what it smells like, what it sounds like, and then the products themselves. It's independent music. It's locals that bring in their used vinyl that we transfer those through. And yeah, it's a local community spot to enjoy music.
That's great. That's absolutely fantastic. Now, are you from this area?
Yeah, I'm from Stark County.
Stark County, yeah. All right, all right. I take it you've always been a music fan. That seems kind of obvious.
Always music, yes.
What were some of your favorite bands growing up?
I was lucky enough. My parents are both my dad was always out in the garage playing The Who, Guns N' Roses. He was a rock guy.
Wow. And
my mom was always doing her thing with R&B, Motown music. So I was really immersed in their styles. And then I have older siblings. So I was born in 84, but I got to experience early 90s R&B, the grunge movement, because I had older siblings. So there was just always music going around. And then meeting my husband, and we loved going to live shows, going and shopping. So music's always kind of been a good thing in my life. Yeah.
Now, were you an equipment enthusiast as well?
I respect the equipment. And I'm learning so much more now. I've never been that wasn't the draw for me. It was the physical media of music, of the vinyl records.
Okay, interesting.
Everything that goes with it, the analog, the machinery, all the mechanics of it. I respect it, and I honor it. But the audio stuff is definitely more my husband. He gets into all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of great audio women out there though that are starting to be a little bit more known on that side of it, which is encouraging. But yeah, it's all about the music for me.
Yeah. And that's great. I can tell you where it fits into the conversation when you talk about media.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it comes to primarily people listen to, let's say, music on their phone, or they subscribe to some sort of a streaming service in their home.
Sure.
And none of these, nobody buys a phone saying my phone sounds better than yours.
Right.
You know, the playback in them, regardless of what brand they are, they all work pretty much the same. And so there's a parity there. You know,
Sure.
everybody's kind of has this flat line in terms of how the equipment works to play audio now. So the music, by contrast, is instantly available. Just about anything you want, whether you own it or not, with all the streaming services and everything else, you can instantly find your favorite song right in the palm of your hand. So there's a dichotomy here, because on the one hand, the convenience factor is really cool. But on the other hand, there's the, like, I kind of believe where you're going with this. When you pick up an album, it has weight, it has substance to it, and there's a procedure for playing it. You put it on the turntable and so forth. And I don't know, maybe the digital age has kind of cheapened the way we regard music. Would you agree with that? Or what's your analysis of what I've said?
I completely understand where you're going with that and what you're talking about. For me, and being on the retail side of it, I use streaming. I listen to music that way. I listen to music on my phone. I listen to music in my car, on Bluetooth, through analog. I think it's all about how much more of a connection you want with that artist. I listen to a lot of pop music on Spotify. Do I need that music on physical, do I need it on vinyl? Is that something that I want to deep dive into? And that's that whole go, go, go. This stuff you have to slow down. You have to pay attention and you have to be present. So I think it's more of a question, like, how do you want to consume that music? And do you want it just in your car real quick and every song possible? Or do you want to take a minute at home, cook dinner, engage with people, slow down? And vinyl music gives you that. And that's how, life has sped up. So you get to make that choice whether or not you want to slow down and enjoy it a little bit more.
Yes. You'll hear audiophiles often say that vinyl has a warmth, and the purists will go so far with tube amplifiers and all these other things, that there's something that sounds different about vinyl. And I kind of feel that's where some of the attraction is. People have a different way of listening to the music now. Is that something you hear a lot?
Absolutely. With a lot of the customer base, they buy my music to listen to their equipment. I feel like we kind of talked about that or wrote about it. There is a warmth and there is something I'm starting to open up more and more to that when I'm in this space. When it's slow and I get to turn up my music really loud, I do understand what that sounds like and what that feels like. Are you going to get that from every artist? No. You can put on a real high energy electronic album and it's going to sound like that on your phone, but it's still, you're delving into that artist more and getting into that. But you put on, a old repress of a rock band, you're going to hear everything that was going on in there. Yeah. And it does. And the same with the genres, electronic music, newer music, modern music, it is produced differently. It's made differently. So it's going to sound, I feel like they say, like flatter on that, Sure. But when you start opening up to some of the hardcore bands and the screamers and the yellers and all of that, like you understand it. And I think that's with record collecting and audiophile, I feel like there's like that perfect Venn diagram of where everybody understands it to an extent, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to follow up with what you said about slowing down, and you said cooking dinner and doing this and that. I come from an era where people would, let's say, buy Pink Floyd's latest album, okay? And you would invite somebody over, and you would have your speakers and everything all set up. And a lot of guys really got into this. I mean, they measured the distance between the wall and the speakers, and everything had to be,
Oh, sure.
absolutely perfect. And people came over and they listened to the new album together.
Hmm.
And now, by contrast, here again with the mobile devices, everybody's got their earbuds in and they're in their own little world. They're just,
Yes.
and I feel the social, there's two aspects of this. First, the social aspect has suffered. And the second aspect that has suffered is the equipment itself. Everybody wants everything out of sight now, as low profile as possible, which is just the opposite of what it used to be. You came into someone's living room and you wanted to see those big meters and the big speakers. And now it's, no, I don't want those boxes in my house.
Right.
So there's a completely different, those two things, the social aspect and the aesthetics of the equipment have both changed.
Oh, absolutely. They've changed. You can say that they've changed or they evolved, because you can find young kids on TikTok listening to albums and probably saying the same things. Well, I mean, I don't get a good look at their equipment, but they're still doing that. It's just in a different way. And when it comes to design, Bluetooth, all of that. It's more aesthetic. It's the same reason why there were different size council tables for your grandma's big, table in the living room. If you want more of a sleek design, technology has made that possible. And it's interesting when people ask about audio equipment here, because I haven't really gotten into much of it because, it is a big expense, and it is, I would want to have more education about it, but it's such a specific personal thing too, what you want your setup to look like and how you bring people into that space is that social side of it. So it has changed, but it's evolved because technology has evolved. And whether or not you want to pull apart, what sounds better, it's still all perception, what people enjoy doing, But that slowdown, I think, for me personally and my family, the shutdown, slowing down, everybody had to slow down. And we were so lucky to have that kind of base of this beautiful record collection that my husband and I had curated through our relationship. And we slowed down and we took time to cook for ourselves and engage with our kids. And that's what, this is how I'm expressing that and trying to share that. And we have a nice little setup at home, and our records are, that's part of our vibe at home. So,
sure.
Yeah.
I often hear it's said as kind of a joke that one of the reasons why, records and all that sound better is because of the fact the music was better back in the day. Now that's a little joke, but I got to say that I've been a music enthusiast for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was always quick to defend new artists. In the 80s, everybody said, oh, this is bad. And then in the 90s, everybody said this. And actually, when you go back and listen to that stuff, it was very good. Okay.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, lately, I've noticed it's become very synthetic. It's relied upon with computer programs and a lot of electronics and these other things, which in and of and by itself isn't bad. But I can tell you from experience that one of the worst things that I believe an artist or a producer can do is rely on the technology of the time to produce music, because that'll date it more than anything.
Sure.
I mean, you can instantly tell 80s drums, 80s synth. I mean, it's right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's true of the technology today. I know when you're young and you're using this new high-end technology, you feel like this is as good as it's ever going to get. And a year or two from now, it already sounds antiquated.
Right.
So that would be my concern. Do you feel that there's too much of a reliance on computer technology rather than, for example, I mean, a guitar is always going to sound like a guitar. A piano is always going to sound like a piano. When you listen to Carpenters today, or the Beatles, or the Eagles, it could be played today in exactly the same way, because they don't rely on a lot of gadgets. So do you feel that's an aspect that current artists are missing?
Yes and no, but when it comes down to it, all new music, nothing is completely original. Nothing. I mean, if you take a modern band, there's a band called Tame Impala. That is, it's a indie rock, psych rock kind of thing. they use a lot of different types of instruments and computers and different types of pedals, all the things. But when you really break it down, it's a psych rock band, and they probably grew up listening to the same stuff that my dad listened to. So it's they miss out, but they're also building from a base of the music that you do love, and that was, I don't know, relevant of that an earlier time.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I mean, music is made for 10 seconds now too. So I think that's more of the discussion.
That's true.
Like there's not I'm more concerned about hearing a bridge versus what instrument, like how they're making their music. There's such a concentration on how quickly you need to grab someone's attention with your music, and you need to have a strong 10 seconds to go into, whatever platform you're trying to push it in. And I'm an album girl. I want the full, I want to know what the full extended long play is. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but like, it's more, I'm not bothered, and it doesn't concern me about what it sounds like anymore. If something sounds like it's been put through a complete machine, it. Like whether or not you want to keep on listening to that, there's so much out there that's doing so many different things. Yeah. So
if I ever had a chance to interview, let's say, Paul McCartney, that's one of the questions I would ask him. Would today's technology help or hinder what they did?
Right.
And it's just, I could ask the same thing of somebody who's been a movie star for a long time.
Right.
The CGI,
sure.
It's overused. It looks, a lot of the movies look like video games, they look like really expensive video games.
Yeah.
So I think that you have to find there's a way to utilize the technology to enhance what you're doing. I think when you start to make it the focal tool of your creative efforts, then at that point, I have to say, I think you're going backwards. You're relying too much on your tools to be the creator and not yourself. But that's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand that. And I feel like when it comes like sound and what is appealing to you, sometimes, like with some people, that's all they want to consume is that type of sound. So again, looking at it as a retail space, I say really open-minded, because some of the stuff, I mean, either on the side of the wall, whether it's a new indie artist or an old, used vinyl that I found, I have to stay open to and try to understand what people are loving about or needing that out of their music.
Sure. Let me just touch on a little bit of the business aspect of this. Erie St Vinyl is where we are. We are in Massillon, Ohio, and people can find you on Facebook and all these. Where's the best place to find out about you?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't have a website quite yet, but the best way to come is just come inside. I want to pull people in here. I want to make this a purposeful visit. So you can find all my stuff online, but you got to get in here.
I was going to say, doing this, and that is a brick and mortar place.
Absolutely.
Is it takes a lot of courage, and I commend you for that.
Thank you.
It's one thing to have. I know a lot of people start these online businesses where they just buy low and sell high, and they just pass things along. It's another thing to be invested in the community. It's another thing to be invested in you have a lot of stock here, all these things. That takes a lot of courage. And the other aspect of courage, Massillon and Canton, this area of Ohio is relatively small. I know, for example, the vintage community, say in San Francisco, the high-end community is very big there. It's big in New York, and it's big in some of those areas where you have high concentrations of people.
Yeah.
Did that play a role in trying to decide whether you wanted to tackle this or not?
Well, my husband and I we've always worked local. My husband owns Art Bomb Tattoos next door. I work at a hair salon in Canton called Salon 3. If we moved this up to Cleveland, even, I probably wouldn't have to work at that hair salon. But this area, I think, deserves and needs a record store.
Interesting.
So we could be doing this with the aesthetic and the elevated experience that I'm trying to do here. I could be pretty successful probably in a bigger city, sure. But there's they have those there already. We don't have anything like this. So to have someone who's consciously wanting to curate a community space for music lovers I don't know. I'll keep working my other jobs so I can
Of course, sure.
to do this. Yeah.
Well, that's an amazing what's the motivation for you to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't hear that every day. I mean, that's something we need a lot of. I think that the community aspect to business has gone away in all things, not just records and things like that, but regardless of what it is, shoe stores, whatever. I mean, it's always a chain that's coming in,
right,
and you don't have too many people on both sides. You don't have people, and that's where I'm going to go next. It's one thing to have someone like yourself to invest in the community, but you don't always have people in the community invest in the business.
Right.
So how are you getting the word out about what you're doing, and how's that going for you?
It's going. I think it's going poorly, but it's going well. I'm always trying to push myself a little bit harder. Social media is a free platform for the most part if you utilize it. It is a full-time job to stay in people's algorithms and staying relevant. But again, once you get in here, I'm in the back of your minds. This is a place that people like to come to once they stop and shop and watch. It doesn't matter if you have a record player or not. It's fun to look through old music and, socialize a little bit. And you're next to people, you're talking about things. There's music videos playing. So as long as I can get them in here, I know I'm in the back of people's mind again, because there's record stores, there's restaurants, there's bars that I've gone to that I'm always like, man, that place was special. So it's the shopping experience that I focus on mostly. It's just a matter of getting people in the door.
That's what it always is.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. You mentioned TikTok, and you'll get some interesting reactions when you tell people, I'm doing TikTok.
I know.
Because there is a lot of craziness on there. There's no question. But I got to tell you, that platform has matured. Mm-hmm. It has evolved. It's not just a lot of crazy dancing, a lot of and some of those people, by the way, are very talented.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they rival big stars.
I hear you.
But they're all, not everybody does. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of goofiness on there. But it's evolved. I mean, there's professionals on there now. Mm-hmm. There's people who motivation is a big category. Yeah. All these other things. How I've noticed your little videos and the little things you've done. Some of them you've done in here, very creative. Is that something that you've worked on, or are you just experimenting? I
will always be like just a kind of a nerdy theater kid when it comes down to it. And I do think about things like that. Oh, this would look cool, or this would be interesting. The only thing that I have problem with TikTok is that to gain followers and to create a stir, you have to do something that someone's already created.
I see.
And some of it's really cool, but I don't know that it's funny that like the more creative you are, if no one thinks if no one wants to copy it, then it kind of gets lost within the algorithm. So it's interesting. There's like models, and obviously there's different categories. There's that motivational category. I know there's a large like get ready with me. That all of that stuff. It's got to be if you can do this within this, how we like it, then yeah, jump on. But if you want to just make creative new content, it doesn't really. Yeah, it kind of gets lost in the sea, but.
Let me ask you about this too. You mentioned Facebook.
Yeah.
You're on Facebook.
Yeah. There's
a lot going on with Twitter these days.
Sure.
Have you tried Twitter?
I have not tried Twitter, and it's funny to me with all of those platforms, like generationally, seeing who follows what and where I need to be. Twitter's never been a platform that I really enjoyed or understand, so I didn't even go there, I guess.
Okay.
But like with Facebook, I know there is a demographic that I mean, there's collectors out there, and I know I have to be present there. It's not my favorite. It's not the most user friendly for me, but I know I can make it work there. I'm 38. Instagram, Pinterest was kind of where my generation kind of settled, and that's where I'm comfortable with. So learning TikTok is like me trying to figure out that generation's thing and trying to stay relevant within that, medium. Yeah, it's interesting what you have to do, like,
Yeah.
but it's basically free though. Like that's the thing, like to use that, wise is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer for a small business or, self-promoting or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. You have to have a strategy and you have to keep at it. And I would certainly agree that you can only do so many platforms well.
Yeah.
I mean, now, for example, Twitter has been really good to me.
Exactly.
But it just depends. Find a couple that work for you and stick with it. There's a lot of changes going on with Facebook too, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and this is all part of business. This is how it all fits in.
Absolutely.
This is what we're doing here in this part of Ohio. Well, Sam, I got to tell you, the place has a real good vibe. I really like the nostalgic feel, and you kind of have this. If I could go back in time and be on a college campus in 1978, you would be there.
I've been told I have an older soul, but really I think it's more like growing up in my family where I did, like, there's 4 of us kids, my parents, I think it's more attributes to that.
Yeah.
But
and that's not to say that vinyl is necessarily nostalgic. That's certainly part of the appeal, but there's a lot of people rediscovering it. A lot of new bands are doing vinyl pressings.
Yes.
A lot of them, it's not just the stuff, like the Eagles in the 70s and Led Zeppelin and all that. There's a lot of vinyl that's brand new.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you had people ask you for that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, new artists or artists that were around making music when vinyl wasn't, when it was CDs and tapes. You can make more money selling records than the pennies you get streaming on services.
Oh, sure.
So that's what's everybody's doing it. And I mean, that's why the vinyl industry, they are backed up. Like, it takes a long time to get something pressed. And when someone like Taylor Swift's like, I'm going to do this and I want 4 different types of them, everybody has to hold on and get that product out. So it is, new bands are into it. They're doing it. But the vinyl industry itself, it's a mechanical, they're made with machines and materials. So there's this, you have to be patient for things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what artists understand, the money making that can, and it's more of a connection. You get the album art, you get all of those things, and they're artists. They want to put together, and most of them want to put a really interesting package together for their fans. And I think a lot of modern artists really, Jack White is like a genius in that sense. Mm-hmm. To me, he brought, and I like Jack White. I think he's great, but as from a business standpoint, I think he was one of those modern artists that's like, let's all do this. Let's do this, guys. Like, we're getting into this. And you see Taylor Swift, her album, that last album was insane.
Yeah.
And not just on the charts or streaming, her vinyl album, Taylor Swift's vinyl album was one of the biggest selling, it's not just a ripple or a rebirth. It's still a connection with fans, and artists are always going to try to do that.
Absolutely, and there's different engineering involved with vinyl and everything. So it's not just a matter of, well, we'll do some CDs, we'll do some albums, we'll do some digital. It's
No.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated. I got to tell you, Sam, the vibe here, the vibe with you. The community really needs to come by and say hello, even if they're not going to buy something, because you are a breath of fresh air in the business community. I'm going to ask you one zinger. I always get I get a zinger in when it comes to music with a nostalgia feel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the word? Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Greta Van Fleet. Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, are they tributing? Are they ripping off Led Zeppelin, or is it, what's your? I like them.
Okay, I
like them. I like them.
Are you ready for this answer? You listen to Zeppelin, you watch old Zeppelin, you see new Zeppelin. It's a little bit of a bummer, you know?
Yeah.
Let these boys, they're all young, they're all just oozing with testosterone and that psych rock. I mean, let them do their thing, man.
Yeah.
It's totally the same thing. The outfits, everything, the vibe. But it's so much fun to watch, and it's so much fun to listen to. And I'm sure, you know, if you interviewed them, they'd say the same thing. They're just having a good time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I like all of them. I mean, it's an homage, you know.
Yeah.
It's the same. Beyonce, her new album is a complete like bow to Donna Summer and all, like, it's, you know, that's what they listen to. So of course they're going to honor it. But yeah, those guys are great.
Yeah.
They're fun to watch.
I enjoy them. And I'm kind of like you know, like you said, I don't know who said it originally. When it came to comedy, the saying is that it's all been done before. It's how do you make it yours?
Yeah,
that's what it's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I don't take it as seriously as some people, but that doesn't mean I don't respect it and honor it. I just think everybody's just trying to make some good music, and you know, if people get big and the sound changes, then the sound changes. But I don't know, there's always somebody out there making something that you're going to connect to. So you just have to be open to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sam, it's been great talking to you. Just to remind the audience, Erie St Vinyl. Great place to come if you're in Northeast Ohio, especially Stark County. You know, when you're out, hey, you know what, let's go do something on Saturday. If you enjoy music at all, it's worth coming by and saying hello.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And what's the best, your contact information, phone number? Do you want to give us that too?
My email address is eriestreetvinyl@gmail.com. Phone number is 330-809-0412. Do you hear all this?
Yeah,
I'm real sure
you can double check it while we're talking here. And isn't that something? I'm the same way. I was in line the other day, and you know, everybody has to belong to some our program, our points program, and what's your phone number? And I couldn't remember. I had
so it's 330-809-0412. I'm at 46 Erie Street North in Massillon, Ohio, right next to Art Bomb Tattoos.
And you can be found Erie St Vinyl on Facebook,
Instagram, TikTok. Oh, and my young employee got me a Snapchat filter. So.
Oh wow, there you go. I haven't done the Snapchat yet.
That's how there's that pocket of like Gen Z. I think that's how they communicate. I'm trying to. I'm a student of how I'm supposed to communicate with people. So yeah, I've got a Snapchat filter now.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, the listeners that I have really enjoy hearing about audio. It's amazing to me because I'll talk about microphones and this, that, and those episodes always do very well. So, the content that you gave me today is just absolutely fantastic, Sam. Thank you very much for being here. And I'll tell our audience, you know, you can find me on Twitter. That's kind of like my social media home, at Billy D's on Twitter. You don't necessarily have to have a Twitter account to find it. You can find it in your browser or anything else. Of course, if you're going to interact with Twitter, you have to have an account. But and I'm Billy D's pretty much on all the social media platforms. And the Billy D's podcast, like I said, is available on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Good Pods. And if you're not familiar with Good Pods is kind of like what Goodreads did for independent books. Good Pods is doing for independent podcasts. And I don't know why I'm really strong in Pandora, and that really surprises me because that's known for music. Usually, you know, Spotify and Joe Rogan, people think of podcasts, but not so much Pandora. But for some reason, enormous amounts of listens on Pandora. So wherever you find us, I appreciate the listens. I'm Billy D's. Thank you very much for checking out our podcast today, and I will talk to you again next week. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Billy.
I'm Billy Dees and host of the self-titled podcast, The Billy Dees Podcast. We are primarily an interview and a commentary-based podcast featuring authors and creators talking about their craft, advocates for community issues, and myself and an array of co-hosts discussing current events. There's no partisan ranting and raving going on here, just great content. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on your favorite platform and on Twitter @Billy Dees. Thank you, and I hope you listen in.